Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 608, recorded live on Sunday, August 9th. I'm your host, Patrick. I'm going to do the news section by myself this week. This week's screenshot. Skirmish pays a visit to the Gygax Memorial during Gary's birthday in late July. This is the 475th screenshot of the week. Always a nice one. Seems to hit the screenshot of the week about once a year, right around the same time, honoring Gary Gygax. There is a memorial, if you didn't know, set up in the Delirious graveyard. There's also one for Dave Arneson in Runes of Thrall. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend, and you can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we've got part 4 of our Gearing Up discussion with Samius Gurobo. We'll get into more specifics about where you can go and find specific pieces of gear that we liked and wanted to call out. That'll be part 4 and part 5. There's another part still coming. We had a long discussion about gearing up, a lot of fun. So that'll be coming up. But first, we'll get into game news. There wasn't a ton, but what we did get was pretty significant. We'll cover a few of the smaller things. Linabelle posted that there's some questions about... Someone posted a thread that was basically about our Threads of Fate really driving players to play raid content. The original poster was saying, no, they don't. There's not really anything to use them for. Linabelle responded to some of this talk about threads. Said it's worth noting that Update 47 contains 3 more raids that drop threads and all new rewards for the Threads of Fate system. So, little hidden information there that looks like we're going to get some new use out of the Threads of Fate system, which is great. Linabelle has kind of been on a kick of removing crafting systems, which I think is pretty good, but it'd really be nice if they continued to support systems that we have, so we don't have to do new systems all the time. Threads of Fate is probably a pretty low-hanging fruit one in that regard. So, looking forward to that. Steelstar also posted, the Crystal Cove isn't here yet, but there should be a few new items of interest when it next rolls around. So we're also looking at getting some new Crystal Cove items. My guess would be that we will see the Crystal Cove for at least a weekend around Talk Like a Pirate Day in September. It's pretty typical. So if you like the Cove, you should be able to look forward to that coming soon. Okay, server maintenance upgrades. This work restarted this last week. What is this work? So they're doing some server maintenance and update work in general. They overall don't expect this work to result in much public change in the game environment. This is more about making sure our worlds are running and properly maintained in current hardware and software. They started with 2 servers a day. Then they went to... That was on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, they tried to do 3 servers at once. And that took longer. And they ended up having to back out of the work that they were doing on Thelanis. So Thelanis is actually going to get an extra day down next Tuesday. This Tuesday, Thelanis and Arganesson, which are the last 2 servers to have this work done. So hopefully we'll see that completed and everything. The big thing for me was I'm not sure why they didn't do hardcore on its own day. I guess they were trying to get all of the servers cycled through in 1 week to accelerate their timetable. I said that didn't work out so well. They ended up having to... they were going to do Arganesson on Thursday with hardcore and Kyber, and they backed out Arganesson on that day. Me personally, I would have rather they had hardcore be down on its own, since I think that was kind of the popular alternative to, hey, my server's down for 12 hours, 12 or 14 hours today. We'll play in hardcore. Well, Kyber didn't get that option, which is a little bit of a bummer for those of us who play on Kyber. There were some issues that kind of came up with this. So the servers, the search function in banks and other places became case sensitive. Now, that was not intended, and they will change it back to case insensitive searching with the next patch after that goes out. There were also some issues with friends list, the squelch list, and party chat. I think that was mostly on Galanda, but there was some issues there. There were also some reports of treasure hunter elixirs and various store-bought buffs being removed, although I didn't really see a lot of that, or did I see anything other than we're looking into this from SSG on that. The big thing that kind of came out of this was on Wayfinder. So Wayfinder had what they're calling a server data issue. So Wayfinder experienced a significant issue during data center work today that caused character data to be corrupted going back to the morning hours Eastern of July 15th. This was posted on August 6th. In order to correct this issue, we have had to roll Wayfinder back to about 7:30 a.m. Eastern on July 15th. This means that all character progress made since July 15th has been lost and is not able to be restored. That's about 3 weeks worth of game time. We are currently working to capture and refund any points spent on character-based purchases made on Wayfinder during that time, and we will provide further information when it becomes available. That work is not expected to be completed this evening. All account-based purchases remain intact. They will be providing more information in the coming days. The SSG deeply apologizes to players on Wayfinder for this issue. We will be announcing make good gifts for affected players. This is the first time in the game's history we've had to do this kind of rollback, and we intend to make sure to take steps to prevent a similar situation from happening in the future. This happened while Kyber and Hardcore were being worked on. There was a bunch of concerns that this would be a problem that would cascade into other servers. The devs have said, and my understanding is, the issue was specific to specific to Wayfinder. It did not impact any other servers, and it was some sort of issue that the data corruption cascaded back to the point where they had to roll back 3 weeks before they could find a backup that was not corrupted in the same manner. That is, I believe, roughly around when that server work was done in the first place. Wayfinder was the first and only server to have the work done before the server stability issues hit the game. So it had been a while. It had been about 3 weeks. So basically, I think they had to, when the server work was done, something happened that wasn't supposed to, that corrupted the data since then, and to fix it they had to go back to a backup probably before that server work was done, which meant three weeks, players losing 3 weeks worth of progress if you played. They have enabled a bunch of event-related bonuses on Wayfinder to help players get back to where they want to be following the server rollback. So the following bonuses that are available on Wayfinder through August 23rd. Plus 200% heroic and epic XP. Yeah, you heard me right. 200%. Plus 100% Cannith crafting XP. Plus 100% challenge reward boost. Plus 50% Reaper XP. Plus 50% guild renown. Plus 10 treasure hunters boost. And plus 10% VIP XP. As well as double mysterious remnants, which is twice the chance for remnants to appear when defeating a champion. So some pretty beefy boosts there. Again, that's through August 23rd. The one thing out of there that I'm a little surprised that we didn't see is double daily dice. So that's 3 weeks worth of dice rolling that seems to be have been forgotten or ignored in this bonuses. And they do obviously have a double daily dice thing that they can do. But there's some pretty significant boosts there for those of you who are on Wayfinder. Also, for those who are on Wayfinder, condolences. That sucks a lot. Hopefully, this kind of thing doesn't happen again. Jerry also did say that we will have more information on subscription time and other concerns as they work through the process. Expect more information next week. They want to make sure this kind of issue does not happen in the future. Refunding DDO point purchases made during the time after the rollback is indeed one of the key things on the agenda. They have to do some work on their end to be able to properly collate, process, and distribute the points. Why the rollback didn't do this automatically has to do with the purchasing system being its own thing, which is also why if you made account-based purchases during that time, it's largely unaffected. So we should hear more about this stuff coming next week. This happened on Thursday of this week, and I think most of Thursday was spent dealing with the issue. Friday was kind of their first opportunity to really look into how to correct it as best as they are able. So that's kind of the process, and then they had the weekend. They've been working hard. They need a bit. They need some weekends occasionally. I think. So that's kind of what's going on here. Axel also had his own video. If you want to check out his thoughts on this issue, there's. I think most players seem to be fairly understanding and appreciated the attempt to make it as right as best as they are. But there are some folks who are understandably upset and don't feel that these bonuses really capture people who had some time during the last 3 weeks to play, but don't have time during the next couple weeks to play and make that catch up. So there's some fair critique regarding that as well. This also kind of cascaded into things like we didn't get a chronicle this week, in large part because of the work that Cordovan specifically had to do kind of in relation to this stuff and all the work they were doing to get servers back up. Almost every server other than Arganessen was down for at least 12 hours this last week, plus the Wayfinder issue. So there's a lot of stuff that they kind of had to work through, and it kind of impacted all of that. There are some rumors that this coming week we should see the second preview of Update 47 on Lemania, so here's hoping for that. I'm still kind of predicting that we'll have a week buffer between when it's on Lemania and when it hits live. Those of you who've been listening to the show the last couple of months are probably aware that my predictions of late have been terrible and not accurate at all to what ends up happening, but there you go. Bonus days for the week. There's a thank you to VIPs. VIPs will get an additional plus 5% VIP XP through August 16th. So a nice week and a half, 5% XP boost there. DDO bonus days brings you a plus 25% crafting XP boost through August 9th. See, sales. We had a new sale this week. Finders Keepers. Get 25% off of Astral Shards, Sentient and Jeweler's Toolkits, and Treasure Hunter and Hidden Potential Elixirs through August 13th. So it's kind of fun to see a new sale. I'm a little surprised we don't see new sales more often. Seems like there's some opportunities there to have some other things on sale. The weekly coupon code gets you free critical heal potions. You get 10 of them with the coupon code 10 crit heals, 10 CRITHEALS through August 13th. Okay, that'll take us to Lightning Post. Like I said, there's no community news, there's no chronicle this week. Had a couple people write in from our discussions from last week. Musky Alon said regarding the comment on Sharn sets being a pain, playing an ASMR caster druid, and the roots set only has heavy armor. Every Sharn set has a good docent, but not necessarily the right armor. I have no problem with medium armor for a druid, especially with Seasoned Shane's set having such a good shield. As far as healing amp on a Warforged, I agree it's important. It's found that though my Warforged sorcerer has no problem self-healing even in Reaper. Yeah, the Sharn sets definitely they use the armors that they're making available as sort of an artificial balance buffer. I think we've spoken about this on the show. It is. I find it very unfortunate that they tie so much to armors. When armor limit your armor choices when armor choice has a really major relevant impact on game mechanics. We've talked about this on the show a bunch. If you're gonna make medium and heavy armor required to get past an MRR cap, cloth and light armor have a pretty significant impact to MRR cap. That's a big deal in the scheme of how the game works right now, and I find it to be very limiting in terms of character building and gameplay when having a low MRR is very punishing, particularly in higher content, and they have not done anything to address the growing gap in MRR, and then you further make sets really limit what kind of choice you make for armor. So yeah, I agree. I would also say that I'm not a fan. The Hurrites set is like the least impressive set to me. So there's also that. But yeah, docents are kind of the exception, right? Because docents just come as docents. It doesn't you use a feat to determine what level of armor you're using. So, Foji says he agrees with bound to account and bound to character on equip. A lot of times people have a tank or a healing alt or a trapper alt, which is needed for that raid. It'll be easier to fill raids and run it more. Yeah, I agree. Anything we can do to get people to run more raids, I think, is better and give people more reasons to run a raid, right? Dusk of Dead so he just doesn't believe that there should be 6 to 8 different superior name choices for every slot for every level range. I think that is a situation where we are currently in. I don't really agree with that. Maybe not 6 to 8, but I think with the game like what we have right now, I think there's a huge thing to be said about choices and having choices be relevant. If there are 6 to 8 superior choices for every slot, I think that's a better place to be because it gives people more options to be creative, to be their own. You don't end up with everyone on the server running with the same gear set for whatever build they're in. So I like choice to be more available, right? To have meaningful choices that, and I'm not talking about stuff that wait, there's this named item that's totally lousy for whatever build. No, we won't. I think it's good when there's 4 or 5 or 6 to 8 choices that are meaningful and good in a slot for a particular build. Like that creates more interesting gear possibilities to me. Dusk Dead continues saying, name loot chokes out other choices, and the only limiting factor on it whatsoever is if you have a difficult time obtaining it. That can be true. In the case of sets, it's really just a matter of running through the correct content when your characters are at level range where they can handle completing it. It says log negative effects. It would include but not be limited to the star aim point in the state of the auction house and shard exchange, and the almost non-existent player economy. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the downside to bound to account stuff, right? That you can't put it on any of the shard exchange or the auction house, and I mean, there's good reasons to make people run content, but I would like to see a more of a balance between things that you can actually put on there that aren't just named or random loot stuff that you can get in there. So that'd be nice. Augments obviously are the lowest hanging fruit in that. If they would fix the augment system and give us augments all over the place, that would be fantastic. We do have filigrees. Doesn't seem to drive the economy quite as much in that regards. Although that may be from a perspective of not doing a very good job of using that to drive my own personal economy and enrichment. So who knows? All right, that's gonna close out the news portion for this week. Thanks for listening to the show, and thanks to all the contributors for DDOCast, to Standing Stone Games, and to Wizards of the Coast, and to Cyber Ears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. And you can hit us up at ddocast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, if you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at ddocast@gmail.com. There should be a lot of opportunity to chime in this week since we're going to get really specific about some places where you can find some gear and some gear pieces you might want to look at acquiring for various builds. So feel free to chime in with your favorites here as well. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates at DDOcast on Twitter is the best place. So stay tuned for part 4 of our Gearing Up discussion. All right, welcome back to part 4 of our Gearing Up discussion. I am joined again by Samius Gurobo.
Greetings and salutations, everyone.
Yeah, welcome back. It's been a marathon recording session. It's been I don't want to put down other topics we've had, but this is... it's been a while since I've been this excited about a topic. Like, it's just been a lot of fun, and you can really go in a lot of different directions in it. And as you alluded to last time, it's knocking out my discussion part of the show for a month. Just...
The other thing that I find to be really special is you and Arcot both feel like this is like an epic recording session or whatever, and I'm like, this is just a Tuesday. I don't like you put out 8 or 9 hours of content, 10 hours of content every day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, whatever it is. You're just like, what are you guys talking about? Like, we haven't this is before lunch for me. I haven't even eaten yet today. Like, what are you guys complaining about?
I mean, on that note, if you want to talk about my poor planning, we started at 10 o'clock my time, and I was thinking, like, 2 hours. We're going on 3.5,
Yep.
And we've, like, blown right through when I would normally eat lunch.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. My wife she ran the errand to Walmart, and she was supposed to bring me back some Wild Wings. And I think she got back about 2 o'clock. So I've had Buffalo Wild Wings upstairs, hopefully being warmed for the last 90 minutes. And This is how much more I'm enjoying this conversation as I'm not gone and eat Buffalo Wild Wings because I'm enjoying this conversation. Gear is awesome.
Yeah, it is
one of the most fun parts of Dungeons and Dragons.
So to kind of recap where we've been talking a lot about kind of theory and kind of more abstract, because we want to give, like, part of the impetus of this conversation is advice for new players and how to go about gearing that up. And we're going to get into specifics this time, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite things to grab and get at different levels. But I wanted to make sure we hit that theory part really good, because understand that this is going to change a lot frequently, right? We've mentioned this a few times. When you talk about what kind of power level a character has, gear is the one that changes the most frequently, because we get new gear all the time.
It's definitely very high on the list. Because the gear is constantly coming out, constantly changing, it does affect a lot of things. However, on the flip side, because the builds also are getting tweaked, sometimes because of gear, sometimes because of changes, that's also a major factor. But that also segues into changing gear almost every time. When a build has to shift, you almost always also are shifting the gear that goes along with it. So they're hand in hand with each other, and having a good arsenal or the ability to determine what gear is vital and what is necessary and when to shift. So all those things are very important. So I'm also glad that we kind of knocked that stuff out. I think we covered most of that stuff really in depth.
Yeah.
So people listening in a year from now to those 3 or 4 episodes that we recorded, they're going to be able to say, yeah, that stuff still applies.
And some of the
Hopefully this
specific
episode is going to have no shelf life.
well, I think there's gonna be some things that are gonna be pretty helpful too, right? So let's dive in, and I think because there's kind of two big bullet points I have left. Let's start with kind of like a level. We're gonna go through the levels and kind of hit some markers with some specific stuff, and then maybe we'll come back and kind of hit some of the more less specific-y kind of stuff that maybe you're going to be looking for.
Sounds great.
So I will preface this by saying that I generally start my TR train at level 4 by using the daily dice stones. That's kind of where I generally start.
I usually consume whatever I can. I feel lucky if I can get between level 2 and 3.
I don't want we'll kind of hit some of our highlights, right? I want to kind of put this. There's a lot of other stuff that you can get in here too, and some of it's going to be much more build specific. I at least am going to try to kind of keep it a little bit more general than like if you're playing this very specific swashbuckler style build, go like I'm not going to try to get that specific, but with that, level 2, the first thing I have on my list is Borderland weapons.
Okay, I think we jumped the gun a little bit, but yeah, that's fine. We can go to Borderland weapons.
Well, do you want to start at level 1?
Well, I think it's really important.
Let's start at level 1. What do you got at level 1?
You basically covered a few handful of things. So first of all, a mount, if you have it, not to steal from chat, but Youngfly here in chat is 100% correct. You want to have a mount right away. There's no minimum level. You should have one, especially if you got to make a ride. Let's say you don't have Keep on the Borderlands, so now you have to ride your from Korthos to your boat. That takes like an hour without a horse. You got to make sure you have your horse. Once you finally get there, right, then you can start picking up things like your teleport item. Like you want to make sure that you have, in my opinion, the D12, right? The D12 is probably my go-to teleport item now, more than almost anything. So you want that.
As
and
a
then
counterpoint,
also,
I use the mist one a lot because it's
also,
until you run the mist quest, it drops you right next to a teleporter.
correct. I use that a lot on the hardcore server. So again, perfect. And then once you do have done the mist quest, it teleports you into the inn, and the inn has a portal straight to your airship or to like a lot of other places. So it's still really good.
Mm-hmm.
For me though, going to the marketplace is typically where I want to go. It's non-interruptible. Yeah. Well, it is interruptible by you. You can tumble to interrupt it. But if you're like in a quest and a monster's attacking you, you can just hit your D12. And as long as the monster doesn't kill you, doesn't interrupt you, you just keep going and get out. So that's really good. And for a lot of people who don't have daily dice rolls sitting around, they may not be able to skip to level 1. So a Vorpal, if you can get your hands on a level 1 Vorpal, that's also really important. Like, I literally watched another person, a mutual friend, really struggle because they couldn't do any damage on his level 1 character.
Yeah.
So, having just even a level 1 weapon is really good. Preferably Vorpal, doesn't have to be, but like still having a level 1 weapon is useful a significant period of the time. Preferably something that is bludgeoning, preferably something that doesn't take damage to oozes, so you can use it as a general purpose weapon a little bit later. It gives it a little bit more life, but something that can help you get through something better than 1 point of fire damage that you're going to pick up through Korthos Island.
I would say along that line, for a melee, I would go for a 2-handed weapon.
Well, that's why I would recommend a quarterstaff ideally, because it'll get you. Everyone can use it. That's my general go-to, like all-purpose thing.
Casters can use Master's Touch.
The casters can use Master's Touch. In fact, that was a thing that I said for a long time. But I typically have two. I have a quarterstaff. Preferably, what I do is I get the one um, from the DDO store, and I'll craft something on it to make it generally a little bit more useful. So that will be silver and good aligned, and you can easily using the Kenneth crafting system, which we haven't really touched a whole lot on, but it's because it takes a little bit of work to get into. So I'm assuming we'll cover it a little bit more later. But if you put Ghost Touch on it, then at level 1 you have a Ghost Touch silver good weapon, and that's like a general weapon that'll carry you through a lot of the low level content. As that, oh man, I forgot XYZ, and uh, those things together will really make your life easier.
Yeah.
Now back to level.
Well, while we're on level 1 too, I think the Borderlands has a couple of skill items that, especially if you're trapping, that are really good. And this is something I was gonna kind of touch on later. But like trappy skills are kind of like a really easy swap in item that you don't have to necessarily have on all the time. But there's some outliers out there. The Borderland weapons, the ones that I really want to highlight are the caster sticks.
They're great.
Because yeah, they're as good as you're gonna find on random loot at level 2, and
They're better. They're the maximum random value.
yeah, and it, like, even when I find stuff at, like, even if I Yahtzee something out on level 4, right, and get the same element damage and critical damage, like the Borderlands one's still better anyways, right?
Almost always.
Like it's
They also have a slot,
yeah.
so you can put a second. Like again, it's not as easy at these levels as something we mentioned before that the augment system needs a little tweaking, but you could put something else in there.
Yeah.
So like you could put a +1 acid if you end up having to hit things a lot, but more likely you can a little bit later put in a secondary casting stat and it's still like cover your bases.
They're really easy to get too.
They are extremely easy.
The other one that I would say is the Ghost Touch ones. I'm not a huge fan of the silver ones.
I'm not really sure why they exist.
I appreciate the idea that having a silver one there, but you just don't run into much that you need silver with.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
until
I don't
a
really
lot later.
understand the purpose because if it's something that's going to apply to the expansion area, right, or the area that you get the weapon from, which is typically how that stuff works, there isn't anything in there that requires a silver. You can run into the occasional ghost, or you can, and obviously casting sticks are always great, but you don't really have anything that needs silver there. So I'm really surprised that they're not just like a element. Doesn't matter which element, but I'm really surprised they're not just like a D6 of a certain element.
Yeah, that might be a little too useful, maybe. And someone in the chat is saying vampires, maybe. Like, well, but you don't really run into vampires until later, and you're probably gonna find silver.
Your first vampire stuff anyway. In a non-explorer zone in DDO is in Church and the Cult.
Yeah,
and that's level 7 or 9.
9.
Pretty sure after 9. There's a few. After that, there's a couple. Oh, maybe the Bloody Crypt. Maybe silver on that guy. But
yeah, maybe
that's level 6.
But anyways, the key part here is the two out of here is the caster sticks and maybe the Ghost Touch. There are better Ghost Touch weapons you can get at nearly the same level. But if you need one,
not as consistently. That's the great thing about these. They're very consistent.
Yeah.
You can get whatever weapon type that you're looking for right there.
And that's the allure.
And because they're a simple, like, it costs you 1 Ghost Touch ingot or whatever it's called.
Ethereal, I think.
Ethereal. When you're done with it, if you need this backpack space, just sell it or eat it or whatever.
Yeah.
Get rid of it because it costs you literally nothing.
Yeah. Anything else level 2 you want? Give an honorable mention to Muckbane.
Sure, but at that point again, I'd rather have my general purpose beat stick ready to go. Muckbanes are good.
It's a lot more common these days, I think, but
maybe.
So level 3?
Okay. Level 3.
I know you got a big one at level 3.
Everything stops and ends at level 3 with the bracers. The bracers of wind. I know I mention it like every stream, but that's how important it is. That literally is how important it is. All right, now you can have something else.
The other things that I'd throw out at level 3, some of the gatekeeper trinkets are kind of nice. They're kind of going back. I believe one of them has ghost touch on it.
I think one of them does. One of them has a green slot on them, I believe, which is really good. We haven't talked about this concept yet, and I know it's in the thing a little bit later, but having a hot swappable place for things. So for me, it's trinkets. So I don't like having Featherfall all the time, but I do like having access to it. And for me, thanks to these trinkets, I can now put Featherfall using the augment system on that level 3 trinket, and therefore have Featherfall where I can switch into it or out of it as necessary.
Yeah.
So for me, that was actually a very big upgrade for TR lives.
The other thing at most of the other gatekeeper stuff I think is kind of for level
Most
3.
of it, except for the trinkets, are kind of soft.
Uh,
The Delira's necklace from Catacombs is quite strong. It's death block, and I think stacking plus 7 hit points.
Profane hit points. So yeah, I was gonna say Catacombs has some stuff in there that's kind of nice. The which is one. I think it's Marguerite's necklace.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that
That's
comes from Catacombs. There's also protection from evil clicky in the Catacombs, which can be helpful depending on your mileage. And there's a couple of decentish like ghost touchy weapons that are like they're ghost touch silver and kind of holy or something like that.
The sword and the dagger,
Yeah,
they are quite strong. They are very good. The hand reps are also probably the best hand reps for a while at that level range.
Level 4.
Well, we talked about the big ones, and I noticed that even you have it first on the list. The mimic hunt items.
I mean, full disclosure, I added it after you said it.
Did you really?
We were talking, so.
I have
them. Like
I thought we like synced up right there. But yeah, the belt in particular, it's got a bunch of stacking hit points like quality and yada yada yada. I mentioned several times how good they are. They just are. Just go get the level 4 ones. You may even have an argument occasionally for the level 12 belt. I personally have never found a good excuse out of the level 12 cloak, but okay. The dogs are randomly going off. Apologies. But yeah, I 100%. There's so much that I would consider wearing the cloak and the belt. I pretty much always put them on.
Yeah.
You can also have a little bit of an argument for the icy raiment. Not icy raiment. The craftable cloak outfit at level 4 from the House C challenges. I can't think what it's called. I always call it an icy raiment, but that's wrong. But it's got the on-hit minor freeze guard. So every time you attack with your melee weapon, you have an opportunity to freeze the opponent. That's also very good at level 4. And of course, also if you do a lot of swashbuckling or a lot of like weird builds, you can also get your hands on the various named bucklers from the Crystal Cove, particularly the swashbuckler.
And you mentioned the dagger out of there too.
The dagger out of there is also very keen. And technically, if you want to get even more specific, you always want to look at all of the different festival type events and take a look and see what's going on. Personally, I keep a full set of pretty much every single festival item from level 1 to 20. Whatever they have, I just make a copy of it. Because you may not use it very often, but the lives that you want it, you probably really want it. I did a stick build a few lives ago, and I was so glad I had the broken ores. I've never used them before, and they turned out to be great. Like, man, I'm really glad they were here. And it cost me like 5 minutes to go, which alt did I put those things on? And then went and I drug them to my shared bank, and then when I was done, I put them all back.
The other festival that I want to give a shout out to is Night Revels, because of the spectral weapons. There's a pretty good selection of, and this is why I said like the Borderlands Ghost Touch are if you need one, there you go, you get it whatever weapon type you need. The Night Revels weapons are, you don't get to like pick which weapon you have. There's a couple variations, but they're still really good for they've got Ghost Touch on them and some extra damage and stuff like that. So
yeah, if you can, they're better, obviously.
Yeah.
But again, because what if you need a great sword? I don't think there's a Night Rebels great sword.
It's a great axe, but not a great sword.
Right. So maybe if you're a great sword build because you're like a PDK paladin, maybe it works out a little better. So there's a slight edge based on getting exactly the thing that you need, but 9 times out of 10, you're probably be better off with like one of these festival weapons.
Especially
You
at
also
these
have a
levels.
buckler. Yeah, especially. Let's see.
Level 5. I didn't write anything. I didn't write it down. There's not really like named loot that really kind of jumps out at level 5, other than
Which
Ion
one?
Stones.
Oh, the Ion Stones are really good. Voice of the Master is really good.
Yeah.
The Mantle of the World Shaper is really good.
I had
The
the
Ring
I
of
had the
Trolls.
voice somewhere else. That's why it's not there.
Okay. The Mantle of not the Mantle. Sorry, the Ring of Trolls Regeneration. For me is a big one. For two reasons. One, you get that regeneration like every minute, so it's kind of like a free Die Hard. It doesn't really come into play that often, but sometimes it does. But more importantly, it comes with a yellow slot at level 5,
Mm-hmm.
which coincidentally also allows you to put on your moderate fort gem, your augment. So that takes you to 75% fortification, I think, at level 5. So for me, that ring is a good slot right there.
Let's see. Level 6, White Plume, not White Plume Mountain itself, but the quest that came with that pack in the 12. Particularly kind of a big deal. Has a nice selection of stuff. It's got a probably best in slot boots for anybody, because it's at level 6 you get 25% striding,
I mean,
which is pretty
honestly,
sweet.
you know what? We probably should have threw this out in the level 0, but we'll bring it up in a minute. Honestly, the boots are they're good, but they're not the best. The best piece of gear that comes out of there is the necklace. The necklace that comes from that area
Another man's
is
treasure.
key. I think so, yeah. That necklace is like healing amp, a bunch of healing stuff, and dodge, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
Like that necklace is very key. Because of that necklace, a lot of the stuff on the boots ends up getting overlapped, except obviously for the striding. Striding 25 is very good. If you were to just try to pick that up on random loot gen gear, you're not going to have a lot of success getting that. The other thing that, in my opinion, that kind of takes away from the boots, and we should have mentioned this at level 0, is there's an old raid item that I believe you can still get called
You
the
can.
Quiver of Alacrity, and you can upgrade
Maybe.
it.
If you can find someone running it.
Get a friend and go learn it. It's not hard. It takes 2 people, but you can go through that quest together, holding hands and taking
Might
care of
get some
business.
pushback on how hard it is, but we're talking about the Abbot,
We
Abbot
are
raid.
talking about the Abbot raid. But I know there's a lot of guilds out there who teaching raids on it and stuff like that. So learning it's not the problem. It's just getting a couple of people willing to get it done.
Yeah.
And you, a small number of your guildies, whatever, you get 3 or 4 people ready to go. You're in pretty good shape. But yeah, to me, the 30 striding there is key. Personally.
Yeah. The other things from Big Deal that Muck's Devastation is pretty nice. And there's a belt with shield clicky on it.
Also very good.
Also, of the 4 quests, it's the one that I like the most by a long shot.
I've not actually put any of those together in a queue on what I think is the most fun or less fun. But I will also say that the weapons from Kind of a Big Deal, assuming that you can use a Kopesh or you can use a bastard sword. I'm trying to think what else on there is on
There's
the
a
top of my head.
bow.
Those are, they're
The bow's
actually
pretty
very
good.
good. Something that a lot of people underestimate is these like on hit effects. Like I mentioned the freezing guard on the outfit before, but these have a chance to turn people into platinum, which is essentially, at least temporarily, killing them. Maybe not. I think they may break loose. I don't know. I've never had anything live long enough to actually
Right.
break loose.
Those are in Another Man's Treasure, by the way.
Another Man's Treasure. Sorry. But those things also come into play really heavily, and you can layer a lot of these effects in. Now that I think about it, and I say that back at level 5, the chronoscope gear has similar effects. So you have the gloves that on critical can do a big burst of damage. Kind of similar things that like randomly come out of nowhere and kill an enemy. Same thing with like the Trap the Soul Guard ring that we talked about, I think, last episode. A lot of those, you can wear a lot of those things, and they all kind of work together to help you get through the quest significantly quicker.
The other thing out of the 12 White Plume Mountain quests, the helms out of the Mind one, name escapes me at the moment, of course.
Memory lapse.
Yeah, that's it.
See, what we'll do is we'll take turns remembering things.
Yeah, but that one has a helm for each stat.
Correct.
That's level
Those
6.
stats are very, very good.
Yeah, they're all pretty solid helms there. So,
and they all have really nice like secondary effects that can really add to other things. They may even be swappable, but because they all have the same icon, I wouldn't recommend trying to like swap them a lot. So like I mentioned before, but like the Dex one does a little extra damage. The Strength one does like some stunning stuff. The Charisma one adds to not only Charisma to your UMD, but also has a luck bonus. So like a lot of these things kind of combine with each other to add a lot of interesting effects. Even if it's not raising your primary stat, you might be able to get some use out of there.
Yeah. All right. Level 7? I don't have anything.
Level 7, the big one is the Trinket from Bond 4. You don't really go to it very often, but every once in a while, making sure that you have that.
The rage clicky?
The rage clicky, but it also happens to be DR/dash, DR5/dash.
Sure.
So for the low cost of losing a couple of hit points, because it is -2 to your con, being able to, basically ward off 5 points of damage from all the blows. Not saying it's going to be saving your life in Reaper, but on elites or in hardcore, that's a lot of damage saved.
I would my personal inclination for the trinket slot at that point is to get an Ion Stone.
Also helps. And Youngfly actually in chat reminds me, I mentioned it a couple of things back too. The Redfin sets come online there, and the Raven Eye set is actually amazing. It's my go-to set at that point. It gives you +10, I think, to most of your rogue skills, and +3 hit and damage, and it's basically a stacking bonus, artifact bonus. So like that's like +6 to your primary stat because it's +3. So yeah, it's a big deal.
We do need to go back to level 6 and back to kind of a big deal because it has the level 6 trapping catch-all gloves.
Oh, true. The gloves. Like I said, the level 6 stuff is really dope. The White Plume Mountain stuff in general is top notch.
That's one of the few places at this level or like these lower levels where it's like you're gonna want to spend some time there every life until you get some of this gear, because like I said, big deal. Like until you have the boots, the shield clicky, Mux Devastation, and the rogue gloves, and maybe some of the other stuff, I'd be running that every life. Like get that stuff. Level 8 is where you can use Slave Lords crafting stuff. There's a little bit more. It's not as bad in heroic, not too bad in heroic, but there is some stuff there that you can craft. Particularly the caster set, I think is pretty popular.
Yeah, I know that this hardcore season, the individual I was running with primarily wanted to continue to farm Slave Lords. The issue with Slave Lords for me is it's like a really solid fill-in thing.
Yeah.
So like I will typically craft like a Constitution. So you get +5 stat, right? So +5 Constitution. And you can get a +1 to another stat, or not another stat, but a stacking bonus. So you can get another 1 point of Constitution. So you get a +6 Constitution at level 8, which is really good. And then you could also put on, I think you can get some hit points in there, I believe. And then you can also add like a blue slot. So then it's a good spot to put in your hit points, some false life, and obviously your heavy fortification. Because at level 8 from the DDO store, fortification kick. So those things together kind of makes a nice fill-in. It can go on a ring or in a trinket slot. Of
Yeah.
course, I would never recommend because the trinket slot's a swap slot for me, and therefore you don't want to pull off your Constitution item and die when you put on your Featherfall. But it can help fill in um, some interesting goodies because you do have the flexibility to fill it in. The downside is that you're generally not going to, if you're on the TR train a lot, it's not something that you're going to use consistently unless you build something like I just said, like your Constitution item.
Yeah, the casting, and I don't use this. And really the big reason why I don't really get much into slave lords, is because I just don't. I'm 2 levels away from Ravenloft. Is really kind of what it comes down to. And it's just extra gear. But I do know that the casting set is kind of popular. I don't really think the other sets are necessarily worth going crazy over at that level. But the casting one has some bonuses.
The casting one has some bonuses. Again, I haven't actually used it. However, I will also say that none of the Ravenloft sets use like the hat. So the hat is actually pretty good. That can get a little extra life. Also, depending on which Ravenloft set you're using, you might have a ring slot, and the ring is also very good. So, like, if you're melee, you might like be able to glue a. We mentioned a long time ago that it would be really nice to have some stuff that makes you want to compete with the sets. Some of this gear is good enough that if you can work it into a set or around a set, it's still very, very good.
Yes.
So, like, taking the time to farm a piece here, a piece there, very solid. Very solid.
Although I would say that you're kind of talking about like a con swap item. I feel like and this may not be true, but I feel like these days you can really kind of get there just by canth crafting and kind of get to near the same
You can
bang
get
for your buck. So.
you can get close, but not quite the same.
Yeah.
It really depends on the augments and how much you're kind of like looking to do stuff.
Yeah.
I don't. I'd have to like pull up the crafting planner, but I think level 8 is still +4. So this is one better than the canon.
I can tell you what 10 is.
I bet you can.
Anything else you want to mention at level 8?
Not at level 8, but I actually forgot we should have added this again back at level 5, and I apologize for thinking about stuff a little bit after the fact.
It's gonna happen.
The Three Barrel Cove Explorer area is actually filled with really great gear. It's low impact to go farm up. So you're talking about like the Rune Arm, for example, comes to mind. There's a couple of different suits of armor out there that are quite strong. And if you happen to be a monk, there's a pair of hand wraps out there that you can basically farm literally for free. Like half the time the red name's not even there to fight, but the chest I think is always there. So there's like a lot of easy to get low hanging fruit out there in the Three Barrel Cove area, just in the Explorer Zone. Also, all that gear is level 5.
Level 9.
Level 9, basically you're looking at White Plume Mountain and how you can get to level 10. Basically, I can't think of anything that's not outside of White Plume Mountain. Some of the raid gear, some of like the old raid gear, I think you can put on at level 9. Yeah, like
those are very close to getting fed to a sentient gem.
It's because they keep putting out these almost the same boots, but like the cost of like waiting a level. Come on.
Yeah. But yeah, there's some stuff out of White Plume. There's the light stick. If you're doing light damage as a caster, particularly, I would say like as a warlock, if you're using the light damage for your blasting is almost essential. The bracers in there are really nice. There's a Death Ward clicky here. We didn't mention the Death Ward clicky out of Tengaroo at level 5 as well. Talking about going back.
Yeah, but it's so much easier to get this one.
Yeah.
Than to run the whole chain.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're on the hardcore server, obviously you run it because you need the favor and whatnot, and hopefully you get it. But honestly, it really is all about the for Death Ward clickies anyway, about White Plume Mountain.
We've mentioned Black Razor before.
That's how good it is. We just keep talking about it.
There's the goggles for if you're melee, they're pretty good. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff out of
Manslayer at level 9. That's another thing. I kept talking about all these things that you can layer on Manslayer at level 9.
guess we should say level 8. I don't use them, but level 8 is kind of a festival / challenge benchmark. Every 4 levels is where all of those are. So you get stuff at level 4, level 8, level 12.
Yeah, I've
But
only ever used the level 4 version of those items.
yeah, I'm kind of in the
Or the
same
level
boat.
3. Yeah.
There's some level 20 stuff, but level 10 is, and we've been talking about this a lot. Ravenloft, Ravenloft, Ravenloft.
SOS. I'm sorry. Carry on.
Also that. But
So for those of you who don't know, SOS is a
Sword of
shortcut for
Shadows.
Sword of Shadows that comes out of the Vault of Night raid.
Yep.
It is arguably considered, at least at the time, the greatest weapon ever, and now it's still probably in the top 4 or 5 below level 20 pieces of gear.
If you're two-handed fighting, absolutely. Look, I don't think we need to get in the weeds in Ravenloft, but like we've talked about, there's set bonuses. Like the only gear slot you can't put something in Ravenloft is a helmet.
Correct. Which is what is the shining part for how good these hats are that we've talked about in the last couple of levels.
Yeah, the ones you get level 6 or you can still be wearing here.
Right, or the one from the level 8 one.
Yeah,
from Slave War.
But I mean, you can pick any weapon you want. If you're a new or returning player and you haven't run Ravenloft yet, when you hit level 10, go run into the mists on casual and get a weapon.
Correct.
Because other than the Sword of Shadows, it's probably better than anything else you have and are going to find. And
it is.
And you can pick whichever weapon you want out of it. And there's even a caster one for casters.
The caster one's actually really good.
It's fantastic.
One of the top ones. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Like there's all sorts of rings. There's a freedom of movement boots. Keylock ring that is a catch-all, is your level 10 catch-all rogue item. I mean, we don't need to name. There's too many to name. We'd be here for a day.
The casting belts.
Yes.
Are basically, even once you break your set, you pretty much always wear that belt.
Yep.
Because it's one of the few ways that like stacks with raising your spell power.
It's the only place that has that type of bonus.
Correct.
To the other than the legendary one, which is just a better version of it. And I think the heroic ones are plus 77, and I think the epic ones are 144, maybe.
I have no idea. Never seen one.
But it's hard. It's easy to miss, but that bonus on those belts stacks with the normal bonuses.
Correct. So if you're looking to like max out, it's pretty between the 3 belts, they pretty much hit everything. Healing, negative energy, fire and acid, cold and electric. Yeah. So the only thing that's missing, I think, is Sonic, and I think Sonic's on something else randomly somewhere weird. And well, I think Light may or may not be on the other one.
I don't think it
is. But those 3 belts basically put you in that next tier for damage very easily when it comes to spellcasting.
The other thing I want to mention about level 10 is we haven't been talking about crafting, and we're going to continue to kind of mostly kind of sidebar crafting a little bit because it's too big of a can of worms to open.
It's so deep.
But at level 10 is where you can start putting a third effect on items that you can craft.
Oh, that is an important note.
So this is where I personally have a Constitution, False Life of Insightful Constitution ring, and I have a belt, which I can't wear when I'm doing a caster because of the belt we already mentioned. But that's kind of one of the few kind of crafting items I really kind of want to key in on. Yeah. Ravenloft, like, especially on the TR train, run Ravenloft every time. Just every time you go through, run through Ravenloft.
The other thing about Ravenloft is it's the second of the sagas, as it were. So you want to run through that for the experience or the guild renown or whatever anyway. So yeah, you definitely want to run through there. Keep an eye on it. I know a lot of people who, and I know we kind of a gentleman agreement not to get into it, but when you're renting things, keep an eye on like that mythic bonus down at the end, whether you have one or not. A lot of people, because you run through that every single life, there's an opportunity there to go from like a +1 mythic to a +2 or +3, 4. So yeah, you want to keep an eye on that and continuously making sure that you're using the best version of that particular weapon or item that you.
And you can get some really inefficient sentient weapon food, if nothing else.
Well, and we haven't talked about that at all yet, but my trash can that I carry around has, I think, is literally 5 or 6 slots now, doing nothing but feeding it stuff from the TR
Yeah,
or leveling through the TR process.
it happens.
Yeah, they grow up. They grow up
Um,
fast, so fast.
level I think it's 11 is items. I believe 12 is weapons. Where
Correct.
you can start using shroud stuff.
Correct.
Um,
Shroud items, if depending on your Ravenloft set, are very, very good.
I have a
That's like
shroud
the man.
hit point helmet,
That's pretty good.
which
That's
works
pretty good.
very nicely with Ravenloft set. Thank you.
Yeah, back in the day, before Ravenloft, obviously, in the Wayback Machine, I actually diversified my green steel. So I have like a green steel hat, a green steel goggle, a green
Mhm.
steel boots, so on and so forth. So I can kind of like, I don't get any like the big boost, but you can kind of like, oh, well, I'll glue this one in here or this one in here. So you end up with a couple of things. Um, but now, if I were going to do it over again, I would just make a hat and just plan on being able to use that hat,
Yeah.
whether it's a caster hat or a green steel hat or whatever, and just because it's just mats and you can you can definitely 2-man the shroud if you wanted to at level 20 or 30 easily.
You can
And then
solo it,
obviously
maybe.
you could, I think you can get away with soloing
It
it. But
depends on what your
also,
speed is, but yeah, it's doable.
I think last week I talked about or last episode, last show, whatever. I talked about daggers and using the inquisitive or the knife fighter tree to kind of carry you. This is where the shroud stuff, in my opinion, really kind of like shines.
Sure.
So again, like for example, you can make yourself a very cheap, what they like to call triple earth or a or an earth weapon, preferably like a crossbow, and that gives you a earth grab effect proc. So on a dual crossbows, that's real good,
Yeah.
right? To help keep the monster away. Um, if you have a little bit more shards or a little bit more effort to kind of get in there, I've actually made a vacuum 2 dagger. Again, that's another like insta kill type effect, but also has the advantage of dropping uh, trap the soul gems that you can use for extra crafting down the road. So like a lot of this stuff can chain together with a little bit of foresight and a little bit of effort. So if you're going to go inquisitive, you could make like some sort of crossbow set that could basically take over or dominate. Um, Even though they may not do as much damage as like the Ravenloft stuff does now. But if you can down switch and do something like a Slay Living or a Lightning 2 or something along those lines, you can get a lot of value out of the Shroud weapons at level 12 to, well, maybe even all the way to 20 still.
It's a little bit of an unfortunate thing that I'm not really playing this character anymore, but my original main character actually has a level 8. I don't know why this happened, but his Lightning 2 greatsword is minimum level 8, not 12.
So the original OG Shroud for like
Yeah.
a week was level 8 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Uh, Again, the chat mentions a triple positive. You could even get away with the double positive if you're looking for something really cheap, and that's also a raised dead.
Yeah, it is. It's a little, you're trying to get a little more advanced in some of the basic game stuff. The other thing about level 11 I wanted to mention is the trinket from Necropolis,
Oh, that's also good.
which is not necessarily fun to go and get, but at level 11, there's a what's the second tier's has death block and 5 absorption, I think, right? And I don't remember what level that's at. But the third tier is 10 charges of negative energy absorption and death ward for a level 11 necklace. I get a lot of bang for my buck out of that one. So.
You know what? I actually get the negative one, which
Oh,
is
sure.
not as good, but I like it. It makes me feel good. I can put it on its intimidate item, and Why not? So there's two different ones there depending on what you're looking
Yeah.
for. The other one is typically considered better.
Yeah. 12 or 13, you got anything? You start to end up with more space at this point, I think.
Yeah, there's things here and there. You
I think part of
depending
this
on
is
how much of the old raids that you have, you get the
Yeah.
opportunity to start putting on like some of the older raid gear here and there. So like one that I recently became very disappointed in was what I thought was the quarterstaff from the Titan raid, right? Turns out that's not a quarterstaff, that's a sickle. So I was all excited to use it on my quarterstaff life that I recently did, and then I was like, "Why is this attacking so bad?" That's why. But you have like that. You have like the great sword from Reaver's Fate. There's a couple of pieces here and there. The main stuff at this like level range now transitions into the um, gear from. I'm trying to think of the quest names. Lord March Plaza stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of craft up some stuff. So like if you wanted to, you could do like turn to stone, hand wraps, or vampirism hand wraps. You can do like some kind of exciting things when you kind of like look at the cauldron of Karametra, I think maybe is the name.
Something
crafting.
Like that.
And it kind of lets you build some interesting options.
I think kind of the big idea that you're seeing here, though, is a reverberation of Ravenloft and how good Ravenloft is. And we haven't really had a lot of updates post Ravenloft that land in this level range.
That's just it. It was so top tier.
Yep.
Right? Like it reset what is the new watermark. It is the top of the watermark going forward. And this will hold true all the way through until level 15.
Level 14, the Age of Rage helms. Again, a full suite of stat helms with some nice stuff on them.
Again, the reason why those in particular shine is because they don't
has no
helms. The Ravenloft stuff. But also you have a couple of good weapons that come out of there. You also have a couple of interesting trinkets. You also have a set, I believe, that comes out of there. If you're like
there's a rune arm set. There's the caster stick or caster sickle set.
Yeah, there's a couple of necromancy
good, by the way.
stuff. So like a lot of the stuff that comes out of the Age of Rage is actually good. Basically, if it's come out in the last like
after
3 or 4 years, it's good.
And then that takes us to level 15, which is Sharn, and more Sharn. I will let's just kind of throw in by extension level 17, which is like Sharn Part 2.
Correct.
It's a little annoying to me that there's a 2-level difference in that stuff. But
the quests are a little bit tougher.
Sure. But I feel like that it's so obviously an extension of the level 15 Sharn gear that I don't know why it's 2 levels higher.
Well, the difference is why there's like 95% of builds are going to have a set out of Sharn that's good.
Yeah.
5% of people are going to struggle with the Sharn set. And I don't even know necessarily that the Soul Survivor stuff will necessarily pick up that slack. Like for example, I did that favorite Soul light casting life a little bit ago. It wasn't really a set in there for me.
Flame cleanser.
There was I think I had taken some evasion class. I think maybe splashed in there or something.
Yeah.
So it like knocked that out of the list. I don't remember. There was something that kept that one from being the thing. But every once in a while you'll get a build that like excels with a set from Ravenloft, but there's not a direct replacement in Sharn, which I think is actually a good mechanic. But sometimes it's like, man, everyone else gets an upgrade, but I don't get an upgrade.
Yeah.
But that just means that the Sharn stuff or the Ravenloft stuff generally can continue to carry. You'd be surprised how long it'll last. It may not last it's like 21, 22, 23 or whatever, 29 like some Sharn sets will, but you can get a lot of value out of the Ravenloft stuff even deeper than we're necessarily saying. So if there's not a set for you at 15, it's not the end of the world.
But there is, I mean, and I don't want to just get caught too much up on just the set either. Like, there's a lot of other gear in Sharn. Um, but particularly for like a newer player, we were talking about like what gear should you kind of be looking for, kind of 1 to 20. At level 10, look at Ravenloft. At level 15, look at Sharn, and fill in the
That's kind
gaps
of
in
the key.
between.
Well, and the other things that make those special is again that they're always there. Once you buy them, they're always going to be there. There's some really good honorable mentions. I think we'll touch back on later on when it comes back again with the the festivals and stuff like that. You definitely want to take a long look at that stuff when it's up and farm as much of it as you can hands on.
I mean, I generally wear my Sharn set until I replace it with my legendary Sharn set.
I think that's true for about 70% of the people who do that.
And the
It's
other
very
the other
rare.
20% of those people just don't have a Sharn set.
That's probably true. Occasionally, there's some stuff that you can piecemeal in together that might still be better for your particular build. Again,
Yeah.
there's enough builds out there that there's not specifically a Sharn set for, but I think that's just a matter of time. I really do think that the Feywild stuff will probably add another layer of complexity. Very soon.
Yeah. And that kind of ends my list until you get into epics. Do you have anything from?
Well, that's fair. There's one or two things here and there. Again, most of it for me boils back down to the festival stuff. Uh, if you're an elemental caster, the anniversary event's going to have like the best at that level, and usually a level or two after, you'll have like the best possible gear stuff. So like, if you're a fire caster, you definitely want to make sure to craft a fire stick for every possibility from the anniversary event, stuff like that. I'm trying to think if there's something that like the bauble comes to mind as something that you
Yeah,
probably want to
the
get
chat is
your hands
actually
on.
asking if we mentioned the Amrath cookies. No, there's some cookies at
Oh,
Amrath. Greater
like a
heroism,
jump
invisibility,
clicky.
jump.
Yeah, there's some of that stuff's out there. Although honestly, at this day and age, with the exception of the jump clicky, you should probably have scrolls of all that other stuff.
Yeah,
Um, but
which
like
also
the
saves you from carrying around an extra item.
right, but you have some like oddballs that gems that come out of there. Like I said, the mana clicky is good.
Yeah.
Um, the fancy hat, Regar's Regalia or something like that, gives you a don't get knocked down effect. Is kind of good. Um, you have the Scooty Booties from Cannith,
Schemes of the enemy.
Schemes of the Enemy. That
They have
gives
an
you an
abundant
abundant
step
leaf
cookie. That's why he's calling them that.
That's why I don't. I've never heard them called anything else. I know that they're like Cannith Boots of
Cannith boots of
Propulsion or
propulsion.
something,
Yeah.
but I've never heard anyone refer to them as anything besides Scooty Booties. Once I've said Scooty Booties,
I've never heard it before, but it's pretty funny.
I mean that's it. You got like some trapping gear that kind of comes out of there that has like some +5 stacking stat augments that sometimes there's some niche play. There's you may, if you're like a stick build, for example, you may get some value out of like the Raw's Might stuff. Some people really like the armored grandma made. Again, if you don't have a Sharn set, because Sharn kind of conflicts, there's a strong possibility that I don't even know what that thing's called. Something's halberd, right?
Elocutor's halibut or something like that.
Yeah, grandma knitted it for you. You put it on, you wear it at Christmas. It's ugly, but you love her, so you wear it anyway. But it's actually got some pretty quality stats. You have the necklace from the Lord of Dust chain. That can be quite strong. It has like a bunch of sneak attack stuff and like turnaround, improved deception, some bluff skill bonus, stuff like that. That can be quite strong. I'm trying to think of anything else like particularly comes to mind.
There's a few like
There's
esoteric clicky stuff, but there's not really like once you hit the Sharn stuff in terms of gearing, especially like as a new like all this other stuff is just kind of icing on the cake.
And the point that we've again continuously been trying to make through this entire series is if you're new, these are the places that you can aim for with low hanging fruit that you can get and jump ahead. You know, a lot of the things that I'm talking about and I'm trying to like mention or at least honorably mention are more for like the niche nitty gritty grindy fill in the the bits and pieces here and there, um, because you're going to get in situations where something's not going to work. And when you get in those situations, it starts to get really difficult um, to find something unless you either know where to look or know that there's other options out there for you. So you definitely want to take the time to like explore options. You're like, man, you know what? I'm doing all these rogue things, but I'm soloing all the time. I can't get my sneak attack in. I need to improve deception somewhere. Oh, this necklace makes a lot of sense.
So 2 things from the chat, and then I think we'll do another cut and come back for part 5 because we're having so much fun. We're this verbose. The Ear Dweller.
It's still good.
Is it still good? Yes, it's a lot less good than it used to be.
Of course.
I believe the boost to that is an artifact bonus.
I don't know if you actually wear that. I think you go to a bar,
you swap
you make
it,
a bunch of mana. You make a bunch of mana in the bar while you're taking your lunch break. You come back, you have a bunch of mana that you can eat later, and you go on.
Because well, that's the bugs it spawns, right?
Right.
I'm not sure that it's still. I tried to do that a while back, and it wasn't doing it.
You have to make sure that you're not immune to disease.
I don't think I was, but maybe, I don't know. Yeah, so it does still do that, though.
It does, as far as I know.
Sure. The other one that someone threw out there, and I'm going to put this, I'm going to laugh at this a little bit, because I'm going to put this squarely in that Tier 1 Dream category, the Epic Spell Storing Ring. Because, I don't know about you, but I'm still looking for one. Now, the spell storing ring is something you can go kind of suitably farm. You can go kind of look for.
Actually, but I hate to tell you this, but I've pulled at least one out of every hardcore server.
The spell
regular spell storing.
Sure,
yeah.
Like the spell storing ring I got. I'm talking about the epic.
Right. No, me too. Me too. But what I'm saying is that again, it's another item that you can easily farm on the hardcore server. Has an immediate impact.
Yeah.
All those the mana regenerating items have the same effect. And we didn't talk about this at all, but there's a class of items out there that you can get and get some mana back for a slight trade-off. There's the trinket from Korthos Island that gives you 2 charges, gets you back some mana. And you also have the necklace from Last Stand that for a few
Twisted
hit points
Talisman.
will give the Twisted Talisman that'll give you back some mana.
Yep.
So like a little bit of mana there is a big deal. And then there's one other thing that I guess we should mention that we haven't really talked about. And I'm not sure if you would consider this an item, but I kind of do because it's something that takes up space in your backpack. The Ellery Gold Seal Hireling from the starter pack. You're talking about $10 investment. You get a Gold Seal Ellery. You can summon her every 5 minutes. And if all you do is summon her and have her cast her DVs on you and then disappear, that's like drinking a major mana potion. That's like, I get like 400 mana out of an Ellery. If you have her shrine, because you're on the hardcore server and things are really tight, she can shrine and hit you again. Like, she's a shrine in a can. And every time that she's resummoned, that shrine resets for her. So, like, there's no excuse not to have one. Yes, Ellery is OP. Thank you. I agree. Again, I don't know where you put her. Do you consider her an item?
It's fine. It's a little.
Because at the same time, like, some of the other Gold Seal Hirelings are also quite strong.
I haven't. I'm trying to think if I've seen that pack be on sale recently. When I got it, it was on sale for like 90% off or something silly like that, and I got it for like $1.
Shu says that same nonsense to me. I've never seen it on sale for less than $10. But again, I say it's the best $10 in DDO.
Yeah. You definitely get you get about $10 worth of points out of it, anyways.
You get.
And
I counted it up one day. And without Ellery involved and without the cosmetics, it's a 1,300 point value. You add in Ellery, which I feel is $10 on her own, especially with. I'm not kidding. Like, you make one at the hardcore server, you get to transfer it back, and you get to put that on your character. Yep. Pretty soon, every character that you play reliably has an Ellery in your pocket. I've had Ellery heal me through epic quests. I've had her be my sole source of healing sometimes. She DVs for days. And if a couple of people in the quest have one, then you don't have to worry about mana. Like, she just does everything.
All right, so we're gonna we're gonna cut here, come back for part 5. We're gonna talk about epics and then kind of some hot swappy clicky kind of stuff.
Awesome.
So plug your stuff, man.
YouTube.com/Samius Gurobo. Please go over there and subscribe. I'm trying to get to the 1,000 subscriber mark. I'd really appreciate it. But Twitch.tv, I'm there every day. I'm on Facebook, also at Samius Gurobo. Everything's at Samius Gurobo. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. You can find me, except for my Patreon, which is just Samus. But I haven't plugged. It feels dirty. But go there. Give me money. I need it. I'm poor. I play video games for you guys for a living. Help me out.
If you want to be part of the conversation, hey, leave a comment, email us, DDOCast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. Check us out, DDOCast.com, for show notes, MP3s, calendar, previous shows, other fun stuff. Join the discussion, leave a comment, email us, DDOCast@gmail.com, and you can find us on social media at DDOCast on Twitter. Like I said, I've said it a few times, but I'm looking forward to kind of some of the stuff that people might come up with here.
So good. Such good suggestions lately.
Yeah, this topic came from someone asked a question, and we're here 4 hours later recording it still. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.